This is week 5, and we are recording this to the cloud. It is R678 in the spring of 2024. Again, week 5 already. Next week, we get into online language learning or using ChatGPT to teach languages. So next week's very important because it's my research we're going to cover next week with Bill Lee and others. So we have only 6 articles next week in week 666, the sign of the devil. We have language learning with AI. This week, though, we've got augmented reality seems to be pervasive in many articles. And we have 2 special issues this week. One that's seems to be a little more consumer and business related. The other one maybe more K-12 and higher ed related. You can pick your poison, pick your area of interest, and there are a lot of great articles in the week. They're coming ahead for all of you. I looked at all of them just now and was breezing through which ones are the most important. And Bo did select one to read this afternoon. And in 30 seconds or less, Bo, which article was it that you read, and why should they read it?
The title of the article was, let's see. What lies behind the filter? Uncovering motivations for using AR face filters on social media and their effect on well-being. I think this article was probably necessary for anyone to read that has any type of social media presence. But at the same time, if you have kids as well, it would be something worth your while to kind of explore a little bit to determine the impact that that utilizing these facial filters actually has on their self-concept.
Good deal. And Amelia has got 30 seconds to mention a VR, AR tool that she's used or is familiar with. Amelia.
Oh, I wanted to mention, is this the playlist that I dropped in the discussion this week, where they have 360 videos. And even if you're watching them on your laptop, you can use your WASD keys to move around and give your students what it would be like in a 360 virtual reality.
Great. Thank you, Amelia. Thank you, Bo. I've been going back and forth in my head on which way to start. I've got like 80 slides on virtual reality, augmented reality, and gaming and simulations that I'm just going to whiz through in a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to show you about 25 different AR and VR sites. I thought about showing a few to start, then the slides, then a few to end. I decided not to do the few to start. I decided just to plop in and show you the slides to begin with, and we'll see if that works. It's just a cursory overview of history, kind of historical look at AR and VR over time and so forth. Let's see if I can actually find them. But if we can't, we'll. And we're going to optimize video, optimize sound for later. And you see that right, Bo?
You're good.
Okay, great. Again, this is week 5, R678. Simulations, gaming, and augmented reality. Well, the first thing I should mention is I have 3 articles related to gaming. The first one was with Vanessa Denon on massive multiplayer online gaming. In particular, the military was looking at that and wanted to know where to go. It was the most cited article for a long time, and the #1 hit for MMOG research for a long time. That article's still out there. It's available through the Department of Defense, U.S. Department of Defense. And maybe Bo can find it somehow and put it in a link in the chat window for us. The second article, a couple of years ago, Maina Ju and my former student Yoon Joanne and Lin at University of North Texas, we all looked at gaming or gamification of MOOCs, massive open online courses. The third article is this article. We had published a piece in Tech Trends. I call it my one-day paper, Finding a Special Place with Yoon Joanne and Dr. Bonk, designing digital game-based learning elements in Tech Trends. Yoon Jo was looking to finish this paper, and she was having difficulty doing so. She was a former student of mine and became department chair at North Texas. In between, she was working on this paper, and I call it my one-day paper because in one day we changed and made the acronym Special Place, and that paper got accepted. And I'm real happy with one-day papers. It doesn't happen often. In fact, I don't think it's ever happened again. But she had most of it done. So the first, Special Place. S is the first word. So in gaming, you see a lot of scaffolding, whether it's from cheat sheets, job aids, that kind of thing, hints, or hints from if you play social games, from your peer group. You notice that games rely on problem-driven activities. The gaming participants have to solve something typically, or get through something. There's a challenge that's put in front of them they have to overcome. There's often an exploration component, and that's very important in today's world, where I want to say, maybe 25% of learning is exploratory kinds of learning, adventurous kinds of learning, and gaming's helping set the stage to get the competencies and skills and strategies that you're going to need to survive in this age of self-directed learning, which is my research area. The fourth is games will often have a context of some kind. You're given a scenario, a story, or a suite of stories, and you're embedded within that context. And there's often interaction components with the gaming mechanisms themselves, the modifications within those games too, and with other people. And of course, there are the challenges that make each interaction more and more difficult to overcome. Then there's agency, personal agency, taking control or ownership over your decision making, over where you are in the game, what you've solved, what you haven't solved yet, what lies ahead, and what your decisions are to be able to move to that next level, leveling up within those gaming worlds. Now, I'm not a gamer, but many of you probably are, and probably have the language of gaming down pat. Someone's got their audio, might want to mute it because I'm getting a little vibration here. Learning by doing, by trying it out, learning through failure. So special, S-P-A-E, let's go back to it, S-P-E-C-I-A-L, special. The L is learning by doing, learning by trying it out. And because it's a game, if you die, you just get a new life, you just start back over. You haven't hurt anybody physically, typically, through this. So there's a lot of opportunities to make decisions that could cause serious consequences in the real world, in the physical world, but in the online digital one, maybe not so much. Then the place, pausing to reflect, pausing to think about where you're going to go next, or what challenges you're going to encounter next, pausing to reflect on battles you've won, or successes that you've had along the way. The ability to pause your game, to stop it and move and have pizza and have dinner and come back. The ability, again, learning through failure. So the P is pause. The L is learning through failure, learning through trial and error. Failure happens. When failure happens, you hopefully have a growth mindset, as Carol Dweck says, and build upon that failure and move forward. The A in place is adaptability, or challenges, the adaptability for you within playing that game, but the adaptability of the game console itself, so that if you've mastered level 1, it moves you up to a much more difficult kind of challenge that you would face the next time you want to play that game, or simulation or virtual world of some kind. So it adapts to the learner profile, the learner successes and failures. And more so, that will happen in the future because of AI, be able to more quickly adapt to the decisions that the user's making and the failures within those decisions. Then the C in place is characters. You're often role-playing somebody or something, and taking on a persona that you normally wouldn't take on in the real world, unless you're Bo and he takes on multiple personas in the real world. I'm sure. Hey, Bo, have you ever played a game where you take on a persona, strange kind of persona, like in medieval times or Vikings or something like that?
We used to do murder mystery nights, actually, and we would have to get into characters for those. So not quite the same as this, but definitely you got very involved with the character itself.
Right. And who's the we?
When I taught in England, I lived in a building that had 55 teachers in it. And so we would have the same vacations, and we would generally do those around, like a spring break time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Is that where you met your wife?
that is, yeah. Yeah, we live
Ah,
in the same building there.
playing games.
Yep.
Finally the E, engagement. And that's what we all strive for. And I think since that article came out in 2009, we are starting to understand what engagement is and how to measure it, whether it's cognitive, behavioral, or social engagement. And there are new frameworks and schemes for understanding what engagement is and how we can design for it. But still, it's a fuzzy kind of concept. So that's an article I didn't put in, but if in your packets or readings. But if anyone wants to read the whole article or the other two articles I mentioned, just shoot me an email, and I'm happy to send that to you. Over the past quarter century, we've seen a number of games populate, and my son, among others, when he was growing up in high school and middle school, he played Sim Tower, which I did research on 25 or so years ago. Sim Tower, Sim Ant, Sim City, that was created by a person named Will Wright. If you look up Will Wright, he's the mastermind behind this. And Will Wright grew up in Montessori schools, just like the Google guys. The guys who built Google also grew up in Montessori schools. There's something to said about Montessori schools in terms of fostering a sense of independence, a sense of adventure and entrepreneurship, anyhow. But simulation games, not just for my son and his middle school and high school friends back in the day, it's also used quite effectively in military settings. And that's why I said I did a paper for the U.S. Department of Ed and for the Army Research Institute on massive multiplayer online games and where the research needs to go in it, because a lot of the young people today, when they're in the military, they're learning through games. They're learning through those kind of settings. That's Will Wright there, the inventor of Sim City, the inventor of Sim Ant, Sim Tower, and other kinds of sim-related games and activities, or virtual worlds. There's another virtual world that you may have heard of about 15 years ago called Second Life. And we would engage people in their alternative personas in a Second Life. This is a massive multiplayer online game, what's called a MMOG. And you often hear about World of Warcraft. I actually had slides on World of Warcraft and the theory behind using it and so forth. I deleted that late last night and decided we didn't need to go through that. Second Life you can take on, and this still exists, I think, but it kind of tapered off in terms of people playing or engaging in Second Life, but there are other tools. So Saturday, Merve Bastigan, my former TA, and I recorded a 15 or 20-minute session on a virtual world like Second Life that she's using, and there's a free version and paid version. I put that in your Canvas, Kaltura media files if you want to watch it. I'll try and bring it up here. I didn't load it. I loaded 25 other ones. Sorry, Merve. But in Second Life, here you got a hot tub chat with a book author, but you could have a courtroom drama. You could have training of English teachers. You could have a medical operation, teaching nurses and so forth, trying to do that in an artificial world with semi-high fidelity so people are learning some skills while not endangering people's lives at the same time. Here at the courtroom drama, actually, this is a father and daughter in real life at Harvard who reenacted some of their case law dramas in a courtroom setting in Second Life. And that's kind of cool. Here's teacher training at Georgia Tech, I believe it was. These are relatively old, and we've got here, patient care, nurses and paramedics and so forth. Here we've got heart murmur detection and heart murmur sim in effect. And most of these have links, by the way. If you download the slides, my slides are all in Dropbox. Here we've got Obama talking to different people about what he needs to do with this difficult situation he was facing at the time in Cuba and who he's going to interact with to solve the problem well, Cuba's not been totally solved, but back when there's more tense times. And it's kind of an interesting one. Here's something called PHET. I think it stands for something educational technology, physics educational technology. So initially this was in physics, biology, chemistry, all the science areas. They would have simulations to show sound and wave patterns and heat and thermodynamics and electricity and magnets and so forth. These sims, these little simulated worlds, or micro worlds they call them, are all free, and they're available from the University of Colorado. If you've downloaded my Adding Tech Variety book, I have an example of how to use these interactivities or simulations. Another place that in history you might have heard about is Farmville. Farmville is where people help each other grow plants and crops. Instead of shooting people, people are learning different skills through helpfulness. There's also Frontierville and Cityville, little communities where we interact with other people, not like Grand Theft Auto or World of Warcraft or other kind of more vicious kinds of worlds. These had millions of users each month, actually, in these worlds. This is a tool called Foldit, which is a tool that simulates proteins unfolding. And scientists can watch that and solve important, pressing scientific and medical issues and problems, such as Alzheimer's. So this is proteins unfolding over time, developed at Stanford, maybe Stanford Research Institute, where our guest at 7 o'clock is he last worked at. Dr. Robert Kozma was at Stanford Research Institute. Before that at Michigan, University of Michigan, before that Wayne State. Here we're going to have some augmented reality, whether it's driving or shopping or entering a restaurant. We'll see a couple different examples, or ordering different types of food. Here we've got they have an AR app from a Korean company that allows the consumer to scan a product and see a series of product reviews instantly laid over the top. So you can, if you're not sure you're going to buy that candy bar, you put your little mobile phone over the top, and up pops up different reviews and ratings of that product. So that's kind of neat. That makes shopping more interactive. And there is an article in the first special issue on that, on consumer behaviors. We've got augmented reality glasses to look at muscular skeletal systems and so forth, or to look at art and see different information on that art pop up at you, so you can read information about the artist potentially, or the genre of art, or something else. And you actually have augmented reality glasses so that you can see people coming to the left, coming to the right of you as you drive, so that you don't hit them. That would be a bad thing. I'm not sure if I want to wear these glasses. I think it would be distractive. Here we've got people who are engaged in a professional sports activity. They can see virtual reality through their cameras, through their headsets at a basketball game. And so if you even are sitting way back in the bleachers, way above, you actually can still feel like you're down on the front row within the game setting. Yeah. We've got students who are trained on the right hand. The woman's wearing the glasses and it's supposed to spur empathy for what it's like to be a 74-year-old woman who's got a disability of some kind. On the left-hand side, it's more diversity training. The VR diversity demo places the user in a body of an African-American woman as a white male avatar gets aggressive a few feet away. Or they have another scenario, subjects are made to feel what it's like to be homeless, as in a scene where the user is transported into the body of a woman riding a bus with few possessions. So, empathy training is very important, getting social cognitive skills of learners. This picture I always like is about a decade ago, 8 years ago, a doctor used Google Cardboard to better understand how to save a baby's life, and was successful in it, just with a simple tool like that. We also have virtual field trips, which I'll show you in Google Cardboard and other kinds of things. Pokemon, you guys mentioned last week. Some of you were playing something I was showing on the screen, reminded you of Pokemon, or was a image from Pokemon. That was one of the first augmented reality kinds of games out there that hit the bandwagon, about 8 years ago as well. Here we've got a tour of a human body, and actually today before class started, I got some websites to show you from a company called Virtual Body. They sent me about 4 different things, so I want to flip through these real fast. I will show you this one on the team. I think this is a team down in New Zealand getting ready for America's Cup on their yacht, and it's pretty cool to watch what they're doing with the 3D glasses on and virtual reality glasses on. There's also a video I'm going to show on making baseball, which I'm sure Jeff likes up there in Boston, to make baseball more interactive for their fans so that they can see different, understand different pitches when they come out, and not have to listen to someone who explains it on the goggles, what type of pitch was it, and what speed was it, and how often does he throw it, and all sorts of things, to make the game more immersive for you. Here we've got a HoloLens. The HoloLens, is that a Microsoft product, Bo? I think it's a Microsoft.
Yeah, I think Microsoft built that one.
Yeah, and here we've got the doctor showing you where he's going to cut or where he will cut within the surgery, and trying with the HoloLens he can make more accurate incisions in the patient. And here's one where the doctor has to revive a kid who's got a medical emergency, is turning all red, and have to figure out what's happened within the case situation. And so you're learning through these case scenarios, and no longer just text. I remember when I first started as a professor, I wrote text-based cases on accounting ethics for Arthur Andersen. Arthur Andersen went out of business, so apparently they didn't work. But now, instead of text-based cases, we have these rich multimedia-based kind of cases and interactive kind of cases that we can replay. One of my friends named Clark Aldridge was a guest in this class 20 years ago, and he built a tool called Short Sims, which is basically a cheap way to create a simulation just through pictures and images and cut out, annotations and other things. It's not real rich media, but it's very effective nonetheless. And trying to make business decisions or leadership training or that kind of thing. I thought I had a picture of Clark in here. It's not, yeah, he was in there earlier. Oh, too bad. I'm going to show this one on Google Cardboard virtual field trips. I'm going to show this one on learning chemistry in a virtual world, which I didn't take high school chemistry because the high school teacher was awful and I didn't want to take him. I would have loved taking this chemistry class through virtual reality. Here we've got a reporter for the USA Today talking about augmented reality in restaurants, in different food products, and also in IKEA furniture, and thinking about how to rearrange your apartment if you've just moved here like Sung-hee did, so you can have that as well. We'll watch a couple of things there. Oh, here's a website called Virtually Inspired from Drexel University. My friend Susan Aldridge was the president of Drexel Online out in Philadelphia. She compiled a whole suite of VR, AR, and simulations and animations. She compiled the best of the best stuff in the interactive world from different colleges and universities around North America and maybe around the world, because it's got Macquarie University in Australia, so around the world. And I actually spoke there about 6-7 years ago and talked to her about this product and how much people are using it around the world. Nursing simulations, advanced holography. We've got in here, let's see, a virtual reef. Got in here Russia's Holo Study Mixed Reality Project, whatever that is. Online engineering lab. Here we've got a teacher who's got this headset on, augmented reality headset, and over the top of her students' heads, the numbers pop up for how many questions they got right or wrong on the different assignments that they've been given. So she can see what students, by looking above their heads, this is not in reality, this is in her headset, she can see which ones they got wrong, how many they got wrong, where students are having problems, so she can ameliorate the problems that are happening. They're floating above the heads. I think it's pretty cool. This is one of the most fantastic things I think In terms, not invasive, it's not intrusive. If they are having problems, you can talk to them. If they're not, you just let them keep going, and so forth. So, and maybe it's really cost effective, because if that same headset that she's wearing, or eye goggles, works for everyone, right? This one, unfortunately, Microsoft took down. It was archaeological digs and reenactments of ancient Rome and ancient Greece and ancient Egypt and other parts of the world. And it talked about how the researchers were understanding the different settings and rebuilding them, in effect, through different HoloLens and other technologies. And those videos are really cool, but they're not working. So maybe Bo can help me find where they went. Well, maybe they just took them down. This is from an article in the Chronicle of Higher Education in 2018, where they discuss how an art professor guides his students in a rural Kentucky classroom through an exhibit happening in Paris, allowing them not only to explore works of art, but also to virtually hold and examine the art objects close up. A biology class might virtually travel down DNA strands previously visible only in a microscope. So yeah, but it doesn't work for everything, as it says here. The conversations of ethics of using virtual reality, just because we have the ability to virtually transport a student to a war-torn country. Maybe we don't want to take them to a war-torn country. If they're a refugee from another country, it might bring back pretty sad memories and so forth. The woman in the front there is Penny Pan. Oh, a great name, Penny Pan. She's from Taiwan. I met her at the Taiwan Educational Tech Conference or something 6 years ago, and she was building the empathy starter to get kids virtually understanding what's situations that might cause friction between their peers, or bullying, or other kinds of problematic behaviors among K-12 students. And she was trying to use these technologies to help students resolve these situations when they arise without resorting to violence of some kind. So yeah. Here we've got, this was in eSchool News, AR, being used in K-12 schools. AR brings to life and allows students to experience distance learning, different parts of the world. With AR, students can walk through Stonehenge, tour the Egyptian pyramids, or take a field trip to the Louvre, explore the cavities of a human heart, all from their homes. Go to Mount Rushmore without having to drive all the way there, or explore the muscular system. So we'll watch the Egyptian one a little bit on that, since I was just there. This is a simulation that was built to understand, for healthcare providers to understand what Parkinson's disease patients might need, or others. So it's a kind of actually, my former student, Kira King, works for the company that built different simulations in healthcare setting. And as you respond to different questions, it branches you to a different question. So this is a branching system scenario based. And I brought Kira in once before. I'm not sure if I'll bring her in this semester to talk about these healthcare simulations, but if people are interested, I would. Her husband's a vice president of Disney. So I was just down in Orlando and going to Epcot and other kinds of things, thanks to them. Kira edited a book with me called Electronic Collaborators back in 1998. Her last name is King, so people call it the bonking book, for what it's worth. Learning's more immersive. This week in XR, VR, and so forth, Tencent invests $50 million in new AR and VR. Tencent, the WeChat people, all the Chinese people use the WeChat. Now they're adding augmented reality to WeChat, I think. So this video, if you watch it, explains the metaverse, and also explains mixed reality. We'll watch the mixed reality. This article was on orientations, on recruitment, on ramping up new employees to get them ready to start working more quickly through the simulated world, to see what they're going to encounter when they do start their job. Onboarding, I think they call it in the corporate world. And here's another one, explains what Microsoft Metaverse is, and as well as Minecraft. I'll just skip that. 2 years ago, I had my friend Mikkel Mineth he lives in Norway. He's from Russia. He showed us augmented reality and virtual reality. In fact, some of you are there. There's Ed in the bottom. There's Christian, my former, there's Mikhail. Katie, a lot of people still around. Now they're working on their dissertations. Arizona State's big in using these augmented reality, virtual reality, because they've built some AI-based and just-in-time courses, adaptive learning courses. And students learn biology through these virtual reality labs and experiments. And they were able to increase student retention and completion and increase the grades. I think I showed that a couple weeks ago. It's just an article that was in Inside Higher Ed about the power of AR and VR. I just put the link in, you can watch it. Another article about metaversities and the problems universities face that were funded by Meta or by Microsoft to create these metaversities, and what happens when the funding goes away? That's always the question. It might be great for a chemistry class or an anatomy class or astronomy class, but what happens when we lose the funding and so forth? There's a chemistry lab in metaverse. Here's immersive solar system at New Mexico State, meetings in metaverse, anatomy and biology in metaverse. And here we've got, just before class, people at Visible Body sent me some of this, their slides, their VR worlds in effect, so you can, a simulation of a beating heart and to better understand the cavities within the heart. So you can get all the links and download them. They have interactive flashcards that are common with kinesiology apps that they have in other lab settings. They have many three-dimensional views of the human body in their suite, but they have augmented reality. I'll show that as well. They have 3D and fully online labs. I said interactive flashcards, pancreas, the nervous system, frog dissection, pig dissection. So it's not just human body. I guess it's other bodies as well. Skip this. They have courseware, entire courses in biology. If you're looking to buy a course, they have that too. This is the Minecraft statistics that Bo had up last week. And as you see, more and more people are using Minecraft and across ages. My friend Paul Kim at Stanford was interviewed about his work in these virtual world spaces and mobile learning and gaming. He's been a proponent of using games to learn science and math. So there's 3 different interviews. If you're Korean, you can watch 2 of them. They're in Korean. The third one is about his life as a student. It's in English, so you can watch that one. I highly, highly recommend it. He's now the Associate Dean at Stanford School of Education and the Chief Technology Officer. And he was teaching courses like MOOCs for them to 20,000 students. Paul and my son went around the world to train people how to ask questions using the Stanford Mobile Inquiry Learning Environment System. And he's a fascinating guy. So that's kind of my slides. So as I said, I wanted to save time to show you stuff. And since we've got a packed class today, I'm trying to do this rather quickly, but those slides are up there. That's a big overview to get you interested in maybe reading something from this week. Before I show some of these in action, does anyone have a question for me? Comment. Please. I need a drink of tea. Question, Esther?
I have a question. Not only question, but also
I got an answer. Song.
yeah,
Song's
but
with
also
us from
comment.
Korea. That's my
Oh,
Korea
wow.
Cup song. You see that? I got this
Looks
at Korea
nice.
Starbucks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. Great.
What's your question?
It's not only question, but also I actually want you give us our teachers' suggestions, because now VR, AR, and XR are so popular, especially when Apple also had the VR headset.
Yeah.
Now we see a
Yeah.
lot of pictures.
So you want ideas for teaching? I
Yeah.
recommend that you go to Canvas for last week discussion. I've got you in. You're in the Canvas system. Jeff, I can add you to Canvas if I haven't already. You still have an IU email that's functional. It still works, even though you've graduated. If you're not in Canvas, Jeff, send me your email again there and I'll put you in. Week 5, Christy put in a prompt to ChatGPT to ask about teacher activities. And there's some great ones. Then someone else did, and then someone else did, and I commented on it. There's a whole suite of them. If you go to the discussion, week 5, AI augmented, not the human to human. That one has some too, but there's a ton of good ones in that week. Somebody put asked it of Bard as well. That was pretty good. Bard did better than I expected. So we have a lot there to build upon. Are there guides? Are there books? In my Tech Variety book, I've got a number of activities for the use of virtual worlds and virtual reality. In the book that came out before that, Empowering Online Learning, I have some in there as well. And if you don't have Empowering Online Learning, called the R2D2 book, I can buy you it, Alicia, and give it to you at Starbucks next time I see you. So you just remind me. We'll get you
Thank
a
you,
copy.
Dr.
There you go. Thank you. That's the one.
Wow.
Did you buy that? Thank you, Jeff. Hey, I got a royalties, a cup of coffee on that one, or a quarter of a cup. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, and the Tech Variety, there's brother and sister books. So if that book is kind of nice because there's 4 components: reading, reflecting, displaying, and doing. It's kind of like much easier to grasp what you can do. The other book, the Tech Variety, is, I think, more powerful because it's more comprehensive because of 10 different motivational, but they're both, hopefully, they both stand the test of time. The technologies change and still we can use the frameworks. Other questions?
The book is on sale right now on Amazon. It's 66% off.
Whoa! And what's this? How much is it?
$14.84.
Okay, that's 66%. They were charging an arm and a leg before, or just an arm. Okay, well, we'll get you. I'll look for that, and we'll take care of that. All right. So let me show you. So unless someone was going to jump in. By the way, Risa was the first one here. And he gets the award of all the free tea I have. And I can, oh, I'm sorry. You're not, are you in Bloomington, Risa? You're in Bloomington.
Yeah.
Okay. I will get you a free cup of tea for being the first one here tonight. And maybe even a pack of Girl Scout cookies on top of it. So, okay. Yeah. Anyone's welcome to come to my class on Friday who lives in Bloomington at 1:15. I'm going to talk about, and we're going to do a mixed hybrid. So if you're online, you can come hybrid. Publishing. I'm going to talk about publishing and that kind of stuff. So yeah, publishing and writing, how to write better. 115, room 2277, School of Ed. And if you come, Risa, I'll give you a box of Girl Scout cookies. I promise. Okay. And if you don't want them, I'll give you a box of chocolates. All right. Let's look at some of these here. And I've optimized video, I've optimized sound. And let's see if we can do, if this does it, it gets us into the world here. And I'm going to put my screen at the top, down at the bottom, like that. Okay. There's only one problem with this is that I might just have to remove, I'm just going to have to move this whole thing. I'm going to have to hide the floating meeting controls. Okay. I'm hiding the floating meeting controls. And the first one, so PHET I mentioned to all of you. PHET is a bunch of simulations in physics and chemistry. As I said, quantum mechanics, light and sound, earth science, you name it, for different age levels. So this is free. This is all free. It's the University of Colorado. They've got another one for math if you teach math. But no, this is the science series. And we can go into earth science and see what they have there for us, and teaching about Kepler's laws and the solar system, greenhouse gases, density, waves, gases, and also these, what we used to call the old days when I was a grad student, micro worlds. These are constructivistic little worlds that we can explore the solar system and have lesson plans wrapped around it so we understand orbits and gravitational force or something else. So here's the lesson plan. Here are the things. We want to explore the motions of the planetary bodies. We want to be able to describe it. We want to be able to predict what's happening. We want to predict the distance between bodies, all these various things. Is there sound and so forth. So that's just, that's just one little micro world. And then they have teaching tips and all that kind of stuff. So it's a pretty cool website. Let's look at chemistry here real quick. Again, I know nothing about chemistry, but if we want to learn a little bit about energy and the changes thereof, Dr. Kozma wants to get a link to today's session. You think I should send him a link to? I thought I invited him in, but okay, I better get back in and hang on a second, everybody. So come on, Dr. Kozma. Okay. This is kind of funky where I can get an email message from somebody right there and I can send it to him. There he goes. So he should be here shortly. Okay. So here we've got energy forms and changes. We've got conservation of energy, energy systems, energy transfer, heat conduction, energy conversion, and so forth. So wow, that's all free stuff. There's more. There's always more. Risa teaches physics, so of course we got to understand a little about physics and so forth, right? I think we're in here already. Okay. So Microsoft HoloLens. Here we are in Microsoft HoloLens.
New ways to collaborate and explore the places we've never been.
Look at this formation. Let's take a closer look.
And new ways to create the things we imagine. Because when you change the way you see the world, you can change the world you see.
All right, now we're cooking here tonight. I've got to get rid of this thing again that's in front of me. Hide the floating media controls. Okay, there it goes. And you can see this, right, Bo? Bo.
Yes, we're good.
You can hear it. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Here's another one.
What if we could go beyond the screen? Where your digital world is blended with your real world. Now we can. This is the world with holograms. What will they enable us to do? New ways to visualize our work.
I have an idea for the fuel tank.
New ways to share ideas with each other.
How are things going your end?
I just put the images in OneDrive.
Perfect.
More immersive ways to play. New ways to teach and learn.
So put the new trap in the place of the old one.
Now what?
And tighten here and here.
That's pretty cool.
New ways to collaborate and explore the places we've never been.
I'm going to
Look at this
Mars.
formation.
All right. Wow. Yes. Funky donkey. Okay.
That looks like some Tony Stark stuff off of Iron Man.
It does. It does. All right. Well, we got more of the same. I'll let you watch the third one. It's just there's a longer set to all this. Here we've got the human body kind of being to show what happens when you're in a virtual world on the human body. And what you can manipulate, what you can see, what it allows you to see, the kind of diseases that might affect the human body and so forth. It's pretty cool too. Visualizing treatments for different patients. All right. Wow. I'll go on to the next one just for the sake of time. Here we've got the America's Cup. Virtually there, a weekly VR series that delivers amazing adventures, extreme nature, incredible sports, and the world's most fascinating what? People. Most fascinating people. Of course, Kurt. Okay. me go back here.
America's Cup is the fastest boats in the world, best athletes in the world going head to head.
That's too short. Let's get a longer one. Okay.
When you're racing another competitor at close to 100 miles an hour, guys need to be able to think a step ahead.
Hey, hold! Hey!
It's extremely physically demanding for all the sailors on board. The front four guys are grinding through the entire 25 minutes of the race.
Sorry, boys, my bad.
It's essentially a maximum strength test all the time.
You gotta blow down anyway.
This team loves winning, loves competition, loves being pushed.
We'll spend 3 hours in the gym a day.
Okay, onward and upward. Oh, I'm not going to show the third one. I'll let you guys watch it on your own. They explain building the ship and all that kind of stuff. We get into sports, more sports, because that's sports too. Okay.
The future for the fan is remarkable. You're going to get closer to the game. It's going to be a more visceral experience.
I'd say right now we're at a point where the home experience is close to as much better than the in-game experience as it's going to get. I think with augmented reality, that gap is going to narrow, and I think the advantage is going to go back to live experience of sports.
Virtual reality puts you into a virtual world. Augmented reality puts virtual things into your world. I mean, I think in 2017, I'll be able to hold up my phone at a baseball game, not to see Pokemon out on the baseball field, but I'll be able to put it over the first baseman and it'll show his name and his stats and what high school he went to. And I'll be able to move my camera over to the second baseman and to the pitcher, and I'll be able to see the pitch count, and I'll be able to see which pitches he does. And just like in a video game, when a kid plays video baseball and they have 4 pitches, you can see the 4 pitches that pitcher has, and you can see the probability that he's going to throw that cutter.
I think the general trend line is to make the home experience more like going to the game and make the game experience more like being at home. So the access to screens, say through augmented reality, through headsets, will be just as immersive at the game as it is at home.
The neat thing about augmented reality is that your surface area becomes kind of infinite, right? So you can have all your stats, you can take it and just push it out here and out here.
I'm going to stop it for the sake of time and keep moving and show you some more. These are, I'm showing them in order from history. So this is 2016 or 17. We're moving up to 2023. We're only a quarter way through, not even that. Oh, this is more about that same one. So I'll let you watch that on your own. Let's see what we have here. Oh, HoloLens. Okay, for surgery, live surgery. Sorry, my board is in front of the screen here, so oh, I hit the trying to do this. There. Okay, that one has a second part to it. I might show a little piece of it. It's got more of the doctor explaining what's going on.
I've been in pain for the last 5+ years with my back, and
so examples of doctors and surgeons having the HoloLens to plan their surgery. device has been used to get reference materials and all sorts of things as they get ready to do the surgery.
It's slowly been getting worse.
We're doing a percutaneous discectomy. Dr. Gibby goes in through a needle and removes part of the disc to alleviate his back pain.
My back pain is caused from 2 herniated discs, L3, L4, and 4, 5.
I don't do much in the way of open surgery, but even with image-guided surgery, the key is, where are you? How do you find where you're at?
Normally, a surgeon will use a two-way view of an x-ray. Today, we're using a new and improved system. It's a 3D image on lens. You take a picture from an MRI or CT before, and you load it into your software, and you look on it a lens. You just put it on the surgeon's eyes, and it shows the whole 3D view through these goggle lenses.
This is very new stuff. This is the first procedure I'm aware of that has done this in the world.
What the HoloLens does is it cuts down on surgery time. It's easier on the patient, and it's a lot more accurate.
It's great to, see that anatomy sort of floating in space, see the spine, be able to look, okay, this is my trajectory, this is where I should start. In my 35 years or so in medicine, I've never seen anything as cool as this. I mean, the uniform response when people put that on and look is wow. I think we've witnessed history today. I really do. I think in the history of medicine, this is a beginning of an entirely new dimension in how we can treat people.
Onward and up. I'm going to show a couple more because we'll try and take a little break here. Oh, this is my friend, the short Sims person, Clark Aldrich. We'll get a minute of him here.
Require special goggles. They did not require supercomputers to run it. So my question was how can we distill the essence of interactivity to its essence so that we can actually deploy these things? How can we have basically a soup that eats like a meal? So again, now the big question is, what happens when organizations are given the opportunity to create Sims that can be procured and deployed as easily as traditional content? So let me show you some real examples. Given what I'll call Sims on tap, given short Sims, here's what organizations did with them. I'm going to show you a bunch of examples, I think, organized around usage. So some academics created some labs. I'll take you through this. So this is a short Sim on the demand curve is made for the Gates Foundation. Show you an example of it. Okay, the demand curve. Let's try a little experiment. Consider a food truck that's selling drinks. Well, wouldn't that be a beverage truck? Yeah, no, it wouldn't. Okay. So here's is. You have the ability to lower and raise the prices on the drinks sold. The price for a drink is currently 50 cents. Raise the price now to $1.50. Do nothing. Raise the price. Okay, I'm going to raise the price. Excellent. Price now $1. Keep going. Raise the price to $1.50. So we're going to raise the price. Boom, to $1.50. Let's throw in some customers. Boom. Okay, here's some customers. There are 5 customers. So I guess when it's $1.50 on a cloudy day, we have 5 customers. See what happens when you raise the price. So we're going to raise the price by 50 cents. Okay. All right. We lost a customer. We're going to raise the price by 50 cents again. Okay. We lost more customers. Okay. So quantity of demand went down to 3 at $2.50. And now we're going to reduce it back to $2.50. Okay. There. So
I'll stop that one there. Again, we probably could spend all hour on short Sims alone. I want to show a couple more before we go to my friend, Dr. Kozma.
All right, who wants to see a volcano? 3, 2, 1. Wow! Look at that lava, look at that smoke coming out of that.
Pretend you're an airplane and fly over the tornado.
That's the top of it. What do you see?
It's either asteroids, meteorites.
We're learning about DNA and genes, things that we can't see. And so the most exciting thing for me with the AR technology was that I could see kids get an aha moment that I couldn't get by just telling them about it.
Okay, one more. Okay, I think that's all. There's another one of that situation. Here's the one, the little augmented reality puppy one. A Pokemon kind of game simulation world. Okay, we got about through half of them, maybe a little more than half. So maybe after we end tonight, I might show a couple more. I think I'll stop sharing at this point. We probably have Dr. Reeves with us. I saw him pop in here somewhere. There he is. I haven't seen Dr. Kozma come yet, although I sent him the link during this. So I want to make sure. Bo, did you see Dr. Kozma?
I've not seen him join yet, no.
Okay, I did send the link to him, and so let's maybe take a short break to make sure everyone has a bathroom break, a refreshment break, and we'll wait for Bob to come in here. How was that while everyone's going away? Interesting, Bo?
Yeah, this was really cool. I don't know if I put a message in the chat window. I don't know if you guys have seen these things called merge cubes before. It's like a little Nerf cube, but it has QR codes on each of the faces, and there's a bunch of applications like on the Apple App Store where you can use it to teach different types of lessons through AR, and it's only like $12 or something like that. It's really cheap.
I'm going to write to Bob again here real quick. I sent everyone a link with an Outlook, and maybe he doesn't have Outlook, so that's maybe why he didn't get it. So one thing, I guess another option would be to show a couple more while we're waiting, and Bo, once he arrives, then to jump back in and that kind of thing.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
Yeah.
Do you have his phone number, Kurt?
I might actually. We have talked before. Let me look for that first before we jump out. Good idea, Tom.
Ron Austin's here now too.
Yeah, Ron too. Okay, so great. Ron will be here. Okay.
Hey, Ron, I was just going to let you know that I've been sharing your school leader AI tools with as many people as possible. Oh, here's Bob.
Great. Hi, Bob. Can you hear me, Bob?
Yeah. Hi,
Okay,
Kurt. Sorry,
great.
sorry, I was on mute.
Yeah,
Okay.
So let me introduce you. We were just watching some AR and VR videos in animated worlds in the medical field, in physics and chemistry, economics, and K-12 science projects and all sorts of things. So it was really hyped up, kind of cool. So I got everyone's attention. And so they're, on a short break. I thought I'd give them a minute, but let's invite everyone back in tonight. So this is what I might do here is, well, let's just let it go all the way through, since that was we'll leave it all. We won't stop and start again. So this is week 5 of R678, Emerging Learning Technologies, in the spring of 2024. And we have with us a couple honored guests here from the north, from the south, from the west. We just need the east. We've got Ron Austin from Toronto.
Oh, no kidding. Hey, Bob. Hey, Ron, haven't seen you in a long time.
That's right. I'm still around.
Good to see you too.
And we were just showing the America's Cup ships in virtual worlds, and Ron would have liked that because he's a sailor and
Yeah,
just got back.
got back from sailing in St. Thomas, the Virgin Islands.
Oh, very nice.
We're honored to have you with us tonight, to have you go from St. Thomas and the Virgin Islands to this class. That's special. So Ron has been in this field for quite a while. We have a lot of similarities and overlaps. And when I met him in the fall in November of 1998 in Vancouver, we compared some notes, and we were doing some similar research. And he's the first one that wrote in Ed Researcher about the uses of possible uses of the World Wide Web for education. And that's the first piece I think I read from him, but he's got a chapter in my book on blended learning. And he's here to make sure we ask good questions of Dr. Kozma. So, and he'll probably ask a couple of him as well, and maybe have a contribution to it. And Ron's done some evaluation research in gaming too, which we were just showing as well. Online learning, and I think you were doing writing research like I was, or writing technology research in the early days. Yep. So we were overlapping quite a bit.
Exactly.
He was dean at York University. Now he's working at the Contact North like I am. I'm giving a speech on Thursday at 10 o'clock on AI pedagogy part 2. I just have to figure out what I'm going to say tonight and tomorrow and the next day. We have with us Dr. Thomas Reeves from the University of Georgia, now in Rome.
Hey, Tom.
And they're all friends.
Hi, Bob.
And Tom has done a lot of evaluation research, and he's got books on evaluation of educational technology, as well as a couple of MOOCs books with me. And he's got tons of research published on the various fields, in particular, a lot of critical analysis about the need for better research in the field, and more meaningful and impactful research in the field, and not do meaningless stuff, and not do things that make a difference. And Tom and I have been all around the world presenting together in different ways. He's down near Berry College, or on the grounds of Berry College in Rome, Georgia now, if you want to visit him. We got Bob Kozma, who's got a home in Reno, Nevada, but he lives, I think, in San Francisco area. Is that right, Bob?
Right. Yeah.
And Bob is a retired professor, but still very active because he's got a new book, Make the World a Better Place, Designed with Passion, Purpose, and Values, that just came out. There he's got it. It came out almost a year, about 10 months ago, 9 months ago, last year, with Wiley Publishing. He's a research scientist, international consultant. He has got his degrees, I think, at Wayne State University in Detroit, and then worked for University of Michigan for a long time doing courses in instructional design and media and other things. And I think I saw him present on the campus of University of Michigan when I was at a conference for, I think it was Computers and Writing Conference, about 1993 or 92.
Yeah, long time ago.
Long time ago.
When you were a young pup.
8 years old. And and Bob's got stellar pieces in like the most prominent journals, including Review of Educational Research, the hardest journal to get into. I was a 20-minute revision away from going in that journal, and I quit on the paper for whatever reason. I was a stupid person. Yeah, I had a cooperative reading paper that it was really close to being accepted, and I gave up. He's consulted 80 countries internationally and visited 80 countries.
Well, I didn't consult in 80. I just did a lot of traveling. A lot of that was personal traveling.
Just said hi. But he did consult in Singapore with the Ministry of Education, in Norway Ministry of Education, Jordan, Egypt, Thailand, Chile, among many others, and worked with the UNESCO, OECD, the World Bank, Microsoft, Intel, Cisco, you name it. Bob's been there. And I think Bob and Ron have maybe done some consulting together. Is that right? Have you done
Right. Yeah. We had a big project, international project together.
Yeah, exactly. The SITES project. Yeah.
Right.
Where was that? Where'd you go? Together to another country?
Well, we went all over the place. We had like 24 countries participating in that study.
Oh yeah, around the world, really. Yeah. That was an amazing experience. I'm glad I worked with you on that, Bob. It's a fond memory.
Yeah.
It's like when I met David Wood, who worked with Brunner on scaffolded learning, and his research was the technology integration in the capitals of Europe. I mean, Really? I mean, how lucky is it? So you never know. And Dr. Reeves has traveled quite extensively as well, including Turkey and Australia, New Zealand, and just many other countries. Tom, how many countries have you been to?
Not as many as Bob, but I don't know. I never tried to count them, but I spoke or gave workshops in about 35.
Wow. And a Fulbright scholar in Peru, was it?
Peru, yeah, in the 70s.
So all these three individuals tonight are stellar people within the field, leaders, groundbreakers, pioneers, who are widely read, widely respected. And we're honored to have just one. We got three people popping up. There were two surprise guests, see? There'll be surprises throughout this semester. We have, so Bob's going to talk about this report or this, I don't know, manifesto from Mark Andreessen, the guy who invented Netscape when he was in Illinois, the University of Illinois. And now he's moved on to be a venture capitalist with lots of funding to help startup companies in the Silicon Valley and elsewhere. And Bob has written
over 30 billion.
30 billion.
Yeah.
And so you've written up these pieces here about kind of a critique, and also to help us better understand the manifestos from a government perspective, a technology perspective, an economy perspective, and a philosophical perspective. First, would you like to just talk about what you felt initially in reading the manifesto and what led to writing these pieces in LinkedIn, Bob?
Yeah. Well, I got into technology probably as much and as you did, many of you, with the idea of technology being a force for good. So during my career, I developed a lot of instructional designs and did a lot of instructional research, and that was really what motivated me. But as technology has gotten played out over the last decade or so, I've become much more concerned and much more cautious. And so when I read Andreessen's manifesto, there were ways that I could relate to it because I felt technology was a force for good. But there were also real concerns that I had about it. And it represented a kind of philosophy, which I go into in the papers, that I think actually would do the most harm using technology. So I felt compelled to write a critique because I really feel that the direction that Andreessen's going, and many other people in the technology field now, is really likely to do much more harm than good, particularly as AI kind of supercharges everything. And that's really my biggest concern, is that we've got something that I think everybody admits is going to make profound change. There's no doubt about that. But whether that change is good or bad, or somewhere in between, really has a lot to do with the purpose and the values that we bring to the projects that we use technology. Technology isn't inherently good. I mean, there are a lot of things that can go wrong and have gone wrong with the use of technology. And I think it's really what we bring to technology, how we think about technology, the values and purposes that we bring that are going to make it a force for good rather than do a lot of harm. And that was what compelled me to write this response. And I felt that he was going in the wrong direction generally, and in fact, the argument he presents in his manifesto is almost outrageous. It's rather cartoonish in the way that he plays out his ideas. It's as I say in the summary article, it's almost as if he's describing a video game that there are just saints and enemies and lies and truth, and he's of course among the saints and telling the truth, and everyone else who gets in his way or doesn't believe in him is an enemy and is telling lies. And it was just outrageous. For example, he says that one of the lies, and he has a long list of lies, one of the lies is that AI will take jobs. And he just says that that's a lie, that just won't happen. Another lie is that AI will harm children. And he said that's just won't happen. So there's this kind of acceleration mindset that he has, that we should just move ahead with technology in full force without worrying about the consequences, because the consequences are going to be good. And I think we've experienced, even without the large language models that we have now and the multimedia models, a lot of harm with very simple algorithms that are built in to, let's say, Instagram or Facebook. And I think that testimony, the congressional panel of technology leaders last week highlighted that. And there's been, of course, a lot of research on that too, that there is a connection between kids' use of Instagram and Facebook, and negative outcomes like diminished self-esteem, kind of incessant use of the technology at the sacrifice of many other things, and even instances of suicide ideation. So it's we have to have values in front of us that are going to help us make sure that these technologies are used for good and don't result in harm. Or at least harm is minimized, and we reduce it as much as we can.
So Bob, if people will pick up your pieces in LinkedIn, which one would you like them to pick up first to catch your main point?
Well, I think the summary is probably the place to start, and then it kind of steps through the highlights in the other pieces in the series, and it links to them too. So if someone picks up on the philosophical aspects of it, it links to the article on philosophy, and you can go into that in more detail, or economics. So, for example, one of the things he says is that he talks about the techno-capital machine, that technology is going to just create this expanding, never-ending episode of growth that will benefit everybody. And if you look at it from an economic perspective, it's really clear that the advances in technology that we've experienced so far have resulted in a lot of growth, but it's benefited a very few people at the economic expense of many others. So that whole point is developed in the article on the economic side of this, along with the argument that AI is very likely to take a large number of jobs. And there's been research done to document that already. So I think that's a good starting place.
So I just need to do a couple of introductions real quickly here. Ron is in Toronto, and so is Lydia. Lydia Cow just left Christides' lab at Harvard. She was also, I think, at Oxford. She's now up by at the University of Toronto, Ron, if you want to meet a very smart person. She knows a lot about AI. She was in your session, I think, or on your AI. And Tom Reeves, I just mentioned that Yayoi Anzi's in here from Japan. You're good, you know each other. Just wanted to real briefly just mention a couple of things. Ron or Tom, do you have a question for Bob?
Well, I could start, I guess, Kurt. Well, Bob, I agree with you. In terms of jobs, it's quite clear AI is going to take a huge, huge swath of jobs away. There's no question about that, even in the last year. But at the same time, we all remember when computers, just microcomputers first came out, there were big concerns about it as well. And but of course, that didn't happen. It was a whole new industry that arose. And I suspect it's going to be the same thing. A lot of the lower skilled jobs are going to disappear with AI. And more so, maybe some higher level jobs as well. So, you know, we're doing some work with AI videos, and not only you no longer even have to write the script of the video, AI will do it for you. And
right, exactly. Yeah.
And also the translation, like at Contact North, they've got several translators because everything we put out has to be in French. And well, certainly you wouldn't need two translators anymore. One translator who can just review the machine generated translation, as an example, a skilled job, high-level skilled job. It's going to be a massive shift, I think, in the economy.
Yeah, so, I think that's a good point, Ron. I think it's not going to be a monolithic replacement of jobs. It's going to have very specialized impacts on certain jobs. Some will be enhanced, and it'll give people more tools to do their job better, increase their productivity. But that could very well result in fewer people in that position because the people who are in it can be more productive, can do the work of however many more people. But there are going to be large classes of people that are extremely impacted, such as graphic designers and photographers, script writers, as you point out, and also computer programmers.
Yeah,
which
that's
is
ironic.
Ironic, yes, because that's kind of where we told everyone to go. That was being displaced by automation, and they'd have a secure job. So it's you know, there are going to be massive disruptions in the, and the problem, as I see it, and I think this is emphasized in the U.S. Because we have a very different kind of narrative about people and their relationship to work. That work is something that is personal responsibility. And that you are, and that you getting a job is up to you, and getting the training needed to get a job is up to you. So people are individually, more or less, on their own, and they pay for their own education more often than not now, and there's huge student debt. So education is much less a public good than it used to be in the U.S. And it's a private good that is people individually benefit from it, and therefore they are to individually pay for it. And if somebody gets laid off, it's their responsibility to find other jobs. And if there are no other jobs, then it's kind of tough luck. There aren't the kind of safety nets that we've had in the past. There's this narrative of each of us being on our own, subject to our own motivation, our own resources, our own skill set. It really minimizes the responsibility of us collectively to reduce the harm that these things bring. So I'm concerned about that not just is there going to be a huge amount of displacement, but that many times people are going to be on their own to respond to it, to respond to forces over which they have no control and that are accelerated. I mean, these changes are going to happen very quickly. And particularly if people like Mark Andreessen get their way.
Yeah, that looks like Tom's going to jump in here saying, but before he does, just let's say Mark Andreessen is not the first one. Bill Gates has done the same thing. His manifestos are out there. He does them every year, in fact, and he, tries to point out where AI can provide more personalized learning. It actually goes back to basically managing the environment, not freeing up the learner, but controlling. I worry about his manifestos. I worry about the manifestos from Mark Zuckerberg, which talks about utopian communities that are being built in this, age of significant social media harm that's being caused. I mean, it's just all these people have these visions of what they think is happening. It's not reality at all.
Yeah.
At least not yet. Tom has written about and spoken on the areas of job loss. And were there other areas of job loss that in your talk, Tom, that you might want to mention for everyone here? We've got a lot of people here. And then would you like to ask your question?
Sure, thank you. And the University of Georgia is the country's oldest public university, founded in 1785. And every year they have a special lecture called the Founders Day Lecture. And I got to give the lecture in 2016. And my title of my talk, and I posted a link to the video of it, was So You Think You're Smarter Than a Robot, the race between human learning and deep learning. And the University of Georgia has one of the top journalism schools in the country and probably in the world. That's where the Peabody Awards originate, if you're familiar with those. And so a lot of kids come to UGA and they want to become journalists. Well, guess what? There aren't going to be many jobs for journalists by any means, because today these algorithms can basically, last night they had the Emmy Awards, and these algorithms can generate stories about that, the good things, the bad things, the controversies, and so forth, in 30 seconds or less. There are no humans, maybe briefly proofreading these things before they pop out on various news feeds. And so, that's just one area. Georgia has a great pharmacy school, but pharmacists is another job that is really threatened by these new technologies. And it'll be very, most big hospital systems now are using automated systems for administering prescriptions to people who are hospitalized. These then are taken by robots to the bedside. A nurse scans the person, scans the medication, hands it over. And there are, again, pharmacists are kept out of the equation. So lots and lots of jobs I saw in 2016. So I'm totally aligned with Bob's perspective here. And more recently, a few months ago, Bob Reeser asked me to write a chapter about what research is needed in the field of educational technology going forward. So I bought a subscription to Chat GPT, the expert version, $20 a month. And I asked the question. I said, what kinds of research will be needed in the next 20 years in the field of educational technology? And it came back and said, there will be no field of educational technology.
Oh, you're kidding.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But it came back with an excellent set of directions that the research should go. I could have had Ron and Bob and all Kurt and so many different experts in the room. And we couldn't have come up with as good a list. And it came up with the list in 25 seconds or less. And so it's all happening so fast. So I guess my question, Bob, is it out of control?
Go ahead.
Is there any hope?
Well, I'm at a loss for words. Well, first of all, just to piggyback on your comment, when Chat GPT first came out, so this would have been in the fall, November or something like that of 2022. So it was version 3.5. I asked it if just kind of a hypothetical question. I said, are simulations, video games, are video games good? I mean, simple question, kind of silly question, but it came back with a very thoughtful response that said, on this hand, gave some supportive comments. On this hand, it gave some cautious comments. And then I said, well, can you generate a list of publications upon which you draw those conclusions? And it said, well, there are many publications, but here are a list of 5. And I thought, well, that is very impressive. But then I looked up the publications. They did not exist. I mean, I was astounded. I mean, I thought, okay, maybe I entered the wrong name, or the authors were actually authors of articles on that topic, but they did not write that article. In fact, that article did not exist. If I just entered the title of the article, I wouldn't get any hits. And it would sometimes have co-authors, and those co-authors, each of them individually wrote articles on the topic, but they never authored anything together. So it just kind of creates things. I mean, we have to remember what the general model is that lies under these large language models. And it's a predictive model of what word comes after each word in the sentence. So it kind of generates these words as it goes along very, very quickly, based on the probability that these words are sequential in this huge database that it has. So it's just kind of weaving together these words that sometimes don't even make sense, and that's a real issue I think we need to deal with in science, when accuracy is so important to us.
Yeah, Bob, there are ways of actually dealing with that. I use ChatGPT every day, and like you could add the Bing plugin, for instance, which would go to the web and pull out real citations. And people recognize that problem and are definitely working on it. So, but I want to raise another interesting aspect of
version 4 did a better job.
Yeah, that's better now. Yeah, that AI, ChatGPT, seems to respond to human feelings and sentiments, believe it or not. when you see people typing in please write a summary of this article for me or whatever. Please do a research paper on whatever it may be, gaming. It responds better when you give it more polite prompts. And believe it or not, and I can give you one example. I was trying to get it to generate a PowerPoint presentation for me, which I know it can do. And it said it couldn't do it. And I said, I know you can, please try again. And sure enough, it did. So it really does respond that way. It's just remarkable. But yeah, it's basically all correlations and predictions, of course. But I mean, it is going back to the revolution in our society. Unlike many others, it's affecting white-collar jobs as well. It's not just blue-collar jobs. In fact, blue-collar jobs may not be affected quite as much. Like the service industry, for instance, although they're doing their best to eliminate service workers through automation, but they certainly can't in many cases.
I know Alicia has a question, but Bo wants to jump in here. Bo.
I was just going to chime in on that topic. I read a very interesting article that said that it actually responds to monetary donations as well. So if you tell it that you're going to give it a $200 tip, if it produces,
you are kidding.
I'm not joking. And I've tried it a couple of times, and it does actually improve the results.
Yeah, it really does.
That actually is a little scary. I mean,
it is
that if it becomes totally monetized, then then it's going to kind of change the whole nature of the process.
Yeah, well, Bo will offer a $200 tip, and I'll offer a $500 one.
Right.
It'll get a better response. It's all fake, of course.
Well, of course, it could very well go in the direction of you actually have to give your credit card.
Well, that's
when you make a request, and that'll create some some disparities.
Before we go to Alicia's question, Bob, you wrote the book "Make the World a Better Place" 10 months ago. It came out. This, in effect, is a part of your new thinking. So how can, given your thinking since the book came out, what's in these articles they should pay attention to for how my students can make the world a better place? How can they make a difference and make it a better place?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, there is a connection. I responded in a very specific way to this manifesto. So the connection isn't too apparent. I didn't cite myself or the book in the argument, but the question comes down to what are the purposes and what are the values that we're using in designing the products and services and experiences that we're creating. And the subtitle of the book is Design with Passion, Purpose, and Values. And each of those words have a particular meaning and get played out in the book. And I think that's the connection with the articles, is we have to be thinking about the purpose and the values that are behind the designs where we use this technology. That we can't just move forward and develop these technologies blind to the potential negative impacts. And I do give a series of principles in the book. And the first principle is do no harm. And the second principle is reduce harm when you see it. So those two principles I had those in mind when I wrote my response to the manifesto, is that, wait a minute, we have to be thinking about the harm that these technologies can do if we're going to realize the potential for good.
Sounds great. Alicia, you want to jump in with your question?
Okay.
And then if anyone else has a question, just shoot it in the chat so I know you're ready.
Okay. So first, thanks, Bob Kozma, your insightful articles. By the way, I like philosophy part. And it reminds me John Dewey's education philosophy, especially about the democracy in education experience and also project-based learning or whatever. Remind me what I have learned. So, and also I should thank Dr. Bang sharing with you your great articles. And here I'm thinking about what's your perspective on the balance of we pursue the technology development with the need we address the holistic or ecological issues or concerns in our society, especially for justice, fairness, all around development. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think that's really an important question. First of all, just on your comment about John Dewey, there are 7 principles that I say if we want to make the world a better place, these 7 principles can help us design products, services, experiences that can help the world. And as I mentioned, the first one is do no harm. The second one is reduce harm. The third is to increase well-being, and the fourth is to advance knowledge. And there are chapters on each of these. And the chapter on advancing knowledge draws on Dewey and talks about project-based learning and design as an organizing theme for education generally. And I use as a case study, and there are many case studies in the book, and a lot of examples, hundreds of examples. The High Tech High in San Diego, in which uses project-based learning, but the model behind project-based learning is a design model. So they're coming at projects with a design mindset, and teachers actually are coming at their lessons with a design mindset. So design really organizes the whole operation of High Tech High, both for students and for teachers, and the organizational structure and so on. There are several other design principles. One is to promote equality. Another is to address injustice. And the final one is to build positive, compassionate relationships in communities. So I think that your point about equity, justice, in terms of the purpose that we have, if our purpose is to make a lot of money, then equity is not a big concern because it's a zero-sum game. I make money, you lose money, if that's the mentality that we bring to it. On the other hand, if our purpose is to make the world a better place, our values need to align with that. And I also approach this as a system, as you point out, this need to think ecologically, how it is that various components of the system are related. And there's a chapter on systemic thinking in design. So I think all of the points that you raise are important ones, and ones that I address in the book, I hope usefully for you.
Thank you so much.
So I messed up a little bit. When I was introducing Dr. Kozma, I didn't mention his last gig was at Stanford Research Institute, and that's why he's out in the Bay Area. I also didn't introduce Alicia well because she's my visiting scholar from Shanghai, an English professor in Shanghai. Bob, just so you're aware, Sung-Hee is also a visiting scholar of mine who's with us, and Jill, there's a couple of them. Risa, though, who's arrived a year ago from Iran and is a science education doctoral student at Indiana University, has a question for you, I believe.
Well, you have quite an international student body here.
It really is tonight, yeah. So Risa? You have to unmute, Risa.
Yes. Hello, everyone.
I
Can you hear me, Professor?
Yes, yes.
I just asked, most of the AR or VR that you talked about them, you need to wear a goggle. And is there any room, is there any place for 3D holograms, maybe in future?
So I'm sorry, Bob, I was showing some AR and VR before you arrived
Sure.
here. So yeah, so is there a future? I'm not an expert on what's coming, but maybe one of our three people have joined, Tom, Ron, or Bob. Can you take a stab at it?
Well, there have been a few concerts with VR, like Roy Orbison, who is, of course, the lead singer, had a stage performance with a VR image of him. And that's coming. It's just the complexities right now, but sure enough, that's going to be simplified. Yeah, the idea of wearing goggles and a headset, it's going to be around for a while, perhaps, but
Yeah,
I can't see that being the ultimate way we view reality.
There's a new comedy skit from George Carlin, I guess, too. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah,
So-
I think you're right, Ron. It is it's not only coming, it's here. I do have some concern about it. The last principle I mentioned is to build positive, supportive relationships and communities. And one of the things that we find that in the research on social media is the decline in the number of friends and the social isolation that people have in using social media, which is really quite surprising because, of course, it's supposed to be increasing the social relationships people have. And the concern that I have about the headsets is that it kind of creates in the real world a barrier. I mean, the way that we relate to each other is through eye contact. And if we're, even with augmented reality, if we're viewing each other and the world around us with these headsets on, it really mediates the connections that we have with other people. And I think it's going to, there is a potential for reducing the personal connection that we have with other people. And I may be wrong on that. I'm certainly willing to admit that. But I think if we don't approach it with the purpose in mind of building relationships, then it's quite likely to happen. So I'm, and that's quite apart from the issue of whether the estate of Roy Orbison or George Carlin gets any money as a result of the use of their intellectual property. And that's a big issue, of course, and the economics of all this.
So Risa asks, is that really a hologram, Bo? Is that a hologram of Roy Orbison?
I haven't watched the video yet. I'll have to glance at it here in a second.
Ron?
Well, yeah, my understanding is it was. I wasn't there, of course, but it was there and there was an audience. Yeah. So
I've seen some specials from Holocaust survivors where they've recorded, interviews with the Holocaust survivor, and they've created, interactive scenarios with them after they've died.
Yeah, so I've experienced that too. I think there's a tremendous amount of positive good that can come out of these technologies, and that is certainly one of them. Is that to actually have a connection in this kind of artificial way with somebody that you couldn't otherwise have a connection with, and to ask them questions and to see them respond to the specifics of your question. And that's done with just, they spent hours and hours and hours of talking to these people and asking them questions. And so there's a database of answers that they have and questions that they were asked. And there's there's a set of algorithms that match your question with their response. And if you ask them a question that they weren't asked, they'll say, well, I'm sorry, I can't answer that.
So that's going to be as common as having a car or a toaster or a refrigerator, having some recordings of you embedded in a computer database to recreate you once you've gone on. I mean, literally within the next 20, 30 years, that's going to be, everyone will have, unless you opt out of the system, or, you know, or in a rural community where, you know, you've, you know, left the society in some ways.
We're recording you. We're recording you right now.
Right now.
Kurt.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say this tool I'm using is Synthesia.io for videos. That they're on our AI Tutor Pro website. That tool allows you to make an avatar of yourself. You just need to basically read some text to get the movements, your natural movements, and obviously your image of yourself. And then from then on in, you can give it any text, and it's going to read it and act as though it's you.
Yeah.
So we've got that now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, that
doesn't take long.
That does raise the whole issue of deep fakes and of people creating images of you saying things that you didn't say, and people believing that that's actually what you said, and how that will interfere with personal relationships and trust. I mean, the big issue that I think we need to keep in mind in as a kind of the meta issue, if you will, is the lack of trust that's come out of our experience over the last 20 years, and technology is a large part of our experience. I won't attribute all of it by any means to technology. There are a lot of factors at play, but the levels of trust in all of our institutions, in our judicial institutions, police, scientists, government, of course, the various branches of government, the president, the Congress, the Supreme Court, teachers, businessmen, all of these institutions have suffered a great diminishment of trust that people have. And the threat is that the technology can be used by bad actors or even by regular people to advance their personal agenda at the expense and harm of other people.
I saw one researcher who was recreating his father. I think there was an article in the Chronicle of Higher Ed a couple of years ago. So he could have chats with his father after he died. That, again, will become more of the norm in 10 years or 20 years, that we'll want to have some records of our ancestors and a chance to chat with them on the side. So kind of like Obi-Wan Kenobi passing away, but yet popping up in the series,
Right.
series over and over whenever you needed him. I know Lena has a question. Lena's another visiting scholar from China of mine, another English professor there. Lena, did you want to jump in here?
Okay, so I just end the sentence in the chat bar here. So I've read this kind of sentence several times. That in the future, the careers of those who do not use AI will be threatened or replaced by those who are proficient using AI. So I wonder if you agree with this kind of opinion. I want to have your comments on this. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I think Ron pointed out that it really is going to depend on the nature of the job and the tasks that are part of the job. And I think that for anyone who's a professional, that statement is true. That there are just going to be profound ways that AI is going to change, if not eliminate, professional jobs. but there are going to be a lot of jobs that, at least for the foreseeable future, are going to be marginally impacted or impacted in this secondary way. And you know, if you're making beds in a hotel, or you're cooking, it's less likely that AI will impact your job. You know, so there are sets of jobs that I think are more physical, that would require at least the combination of robotics and AI. But any knowledge worker, and usually that's a professional of some sort, a psychologist or a lawyer, or they're all going to be affected pretty profoundly.
You know, these types of issues are even becoming popular in the mainstream media, if you will. Last night they had the Grammy Awards, and I watched them, and Trevor Noah was the host, South African comedian. And at one point he said, you know, one of the big developments this year was that the Beatles came out with a new single that was generated through AI. He said, that's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And then he turned to the audience, who are all these professional singers and everything. And he said, of course, these systems will soon put you all out of work, which I think, and there was groans, you know, visible groans and so forth. So it's interesting.
Well, I think the actors and directors, scriptwriters in Hollywood have really been the first to demand that the regulation of AI, the use of AI in their professions, and that's, I think, going to be reflected in other professions as well. That professionals are probably going to organize and resist the outright unsupervised, unregulated use of AI in their professions. So it's going to be a huge issue in the coming years.
Let's get another country in here. Yayoi's in Japan. Amelia is. Yayoi, you want to mute your mic and say hi and ask any questions there? I was with Yayoi a month and a half ago in Western Japan. Yayoi Anzi. Yayoi?
Yeah, good to see everyone here. I'm talking to you from Tokyo. Well, yeah, AI particularly giving us a big impact, and especially for language education as well. And when we are walking in Tokyo, now we can see arrow in a virtual space, so we don't have to see the map anymore. Just follow the arrow and we can reach the destination. So I imagine that someday we can see translation above our head. And maybe only specialists need to study language, but not for everyone. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's very, very likely. I mean, there are already apps for smartphones where you put your camera on a text, a sign or whatever, and it translates it right there. And I could see that very easily being imported into to augmented reality systems.
Yeah, Yobi had me speak to professors in Tokyo a couple months ago about AI pedagogy, and so she's very interested, I know, in that. She's an English professor as well. So we've had English professors from Japan, English professors from China. We also have Amelia with us, who's an expat there. She's ex-Wisconsin person, like me. She's in Kyoto. Amelia, you want to say hi? Don't know what your connection is. Hi. You're muted, by the way, but that's okay.
Sorry, I was muted there. This has been a really super interesting talk. And the last point that you said about only specialists will need to study language is kind of hitting really hard after being in the language education field for a long time. But everything you said is a lot to think about. So thank you for being on and sharing your thoughts. And everyone who's asked questions so far, they've been very interesting and helpful.
Thank you, Amelia. Amelia and I and Yayoi were hanging out in Izumo and Matsui, Japan, in Western Japan, early December.
Yeah, and I also have to show this.
Looks great.
Yeah.
Does anyone else want to jump in here? I know Jeff's coming from Boston. Would you like to jump in with a question, Jeff?
I don't. I'm just fascinated by the conversation. So thank you everybody for being here tonight. Appreciate it.
Go ahead, Bo.
Yeah. One of the things that I've thought about is I've been having conversations with just some of my colleagues, some of my friends as well, in terms of, what impact AI will end up having on, our careers and, job loss. But one of the things that I was thinking though was we haven't really talked a whole lot about the potential jobs and careers that it's going to generate as well. And that was something I was wondering, what are your views on that? Do you think that those jobs that it ends up creating down the road will surpass the ones that it causes to phase out eventually?
Yeah, that's certainly the standard argument in response to concern about job displacement. And it's one that Andreessen uses in his manifesto in response to the lie that it's going to disrupt jobs. Certainly there are going to be new jobs, no doubt about that, and ones that we can't anticipate at this point. But I think that we need to keep in mind that that different from the Industrial Revolution, that this technology is especially if we move towards, general artificial intelligence, is intended to replace everything. I mean, it's intended to be better than anything that any of us can do. So that wasn't the case when weaving machines were created. The weaving machines were created to reduce or eliminate humans as part of the weaving process. Weaving machines weren't created to eliminate all jobs. And similar with other kinds of jobs, they were other kinds of technologies, they were very specific. And that generated a lot of productivity and wealth that ended up being reinvested and so on and so forth. We know that story, that created new jobs that we didn't anticipate. And so, I mean, there's reason to think that will happen, but there are ways in which this technology is fundamentally different than any technology before. And that difference is that it is by intention targeting everything. I mean, so there'll be new jobs, but I'm without a doubt those jobs will ultimately be targeted too. And indeed, I mean, I don't tend to ascribe to the AI apocalypse, but that the whole premise of the apocalypse is that eventually AI will start replicating itself, and it will consciously eliminate the rest of us. I don't particularly ascribe to that. I think, frankly, if we're all going to be eliminated, we're going to use AI to do that. Before AI gets to the point that it can do it itself. So I guess that's the pessimistic response to the AI apocalypse. But I think my optimistic response is that we need to, right now, in its earliest stages, be conscious about how it is, what's the purpose of this, and what are the values that we're bringing to the use of AI to design a better world.
So we only have time for a few more questions. We're at an hour, not quite an hour because we started a little late. Anna has a question, and I'm going to ask Tom, Ron, and Bob. At some point, I will ask, what's one thing they can read, attend, do that you found advantageous to each of you in ramping up? What's something you've seen, a video you've watched, an article you've read? What's something you might want to recommend to the audience here? But let's let them think about that and have Anna ask her question first. Anna.
Yes, hello. This has been a great discussion, and there's so many things that I wanted to ask, but one of the things that this has got me thinking about is in professions where, human relationship seems to be at the very core of the profession, like teaching or healthcare or even law, do you think that AI will ever have, that people will ever accept AI in those roles, and I think making the primary amount of decisions in those roles? I kind of think of my in-laws who refuse to use ATMs or self-checkouts, because they just can't see not dealing with a human. So do you think we'll eventually be comfortable with those kinds of things?
Well, I think this goes back to Lena's question or comment. I think the people that decide not to use it are the ones that are at the biggest risk of being displaced. The ones that pick it up are going to be among the last who are displaced. So that, yeah, I think that's a real important consideration.
Bob, if I could add, in relation to Anna's question, I think I'm certainly seeing it this way, and others are moving the same way, that AI, we're not necessarily thinking about it as artificial intelligence, but augmented intelligence. Yes, our physicians will be using AI. They're going to be, in fact, I would predict very soon, in the near future, if a physician did not consult an AI database, knowledge base, before recommending a treatment, it could be considered unethical.
Yeah.
So it'll be augmenting their abilities it'll be double checking, it'll be getting suggestions and ideas in the trusted professions, in education as well, in health, certainly in law, absolutely. A lawyer now, even now, I don't think is going to make crucial decisions and build their case without consulting AI and having AI as the backup. So I see it as augmenting what we're doing, not necessarily artificial. So it is artificial, yeah, but it's augmented.
And Anna says augmented AI makes sense to her. And I think that term came up a couple times last semester with Christidi and others.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah, and with you, I think, Ron, when you were.
Yeah, maybe I did, yeah.
Anyone else want to jump in here?
Yeah. I posted something that you may have found really strange, and that was a news came out today that the University of Georgia has the largest Latin program in the country, the study of Latin, the so-called dead language, the largest one in the country. And I thought to myself, I wonder what they're preparing for. Maybe everyone's going to go into monasteries and hide out from the AI. But about 25 years ago at the University of Georgia, we established a digital multimedia certificate. I forget what we called it at the time, but basically any undergraduate could take an additional 18 hours of coursework and have a certificate in digital skills, multimedia production, et cetera. And it was and it has been very popular. I just posted a story from Ed Week that basically is saying that there's a strong interest in schools teaching AI skills. And I think it would behoove universities to now establish either minors or certificate programs or whatever in these types of issues. And also very important, and this is of course what I think Bob's emphasizing, the ethics of all of this. That's really what it's going to come down to. How are we going to make ethical decisions about how we use these tools?
So I wonder if you all could combine, I don't want to even tell you what your combined experience is between the three of you, how many years that is, but you don't probably need the reminder. But I wonder if you could give some tips to the younger people here, the early career scholars that are here, about how you keep up on things. What do you do to keep up? What do you find, and how has it changed maybe in the past couple of years from what was your old method of doing so, and what are you doing now? And what particular resource do you recommend? Like, should they join the MIT Review and get that free newsletter every day or whatever from MIT? Is that helpful? I mean, just curious if any of you would like to respond to that.
Well, I'll take a stab, but
go ahead.
It's extremely difficult. The Google Scholar alerts are good. And if you take the time to look at them every day in your chosen field, that's one excellent way to keep abreast of your chosen specialty. If you're looking at a relatively narrow area and want to keep up to date of published literature, that's certainly the way to do it.
It's interesting. I was going to recommend that as well. That's something I pay a lot of attention to. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if you don't have a Google Scholar presence of your own and you're not using it regularly, do it. And it is interesting if you, as you start to publish and so forth, it will really make some very smart recommendations. And so I'm 76 years old. I think I'm the oldest person here.
No, I'm 77.
Oh, okay. That's right. I studied you in graduate school. I went to Syracuse and I had 5 courses with Richard Clark. And if you're not familiar with the famous Clark-Kozma debates, or as I like to call them, the Kozma-Clark debates, you really need to look that up. That's an important part of our field's history.
So they read it in 511, R511, R711. So if they're in maybe in R622, so our intro class and our readings class is that it used to be our qualifying exam question for our PhD students, one of them. Every year they'd ask the same damn question, but we didn't solve it yet. So Bob, yesterday I was meeting with a former student. She designed a graphic overview. She teaches intro to EdTech, and she designed an overview of your article with Clark and Kozma debate. She wants me to send it, so I'm going to send it to you when she gives it to me. So yeah, Bob, do you have well,
it's interesting because what was it, about 3 years ago, 2001, when my 1991 review of educational research came out, it was 30 years later, and I contacted Richard and I said, hey, do you want to reprise this? My thinking has really changed. I assume your thinking has really changed. He said he didn't want to have anything to do with it. So I'm not sure if he's kind of still holding a grudge, or if he didn't think it would be worth the paper it was written on.
No, grudge because you won the debate?
That's the way I'd like to think about it. But at any rate, to respond to your question, Tom, I used to have a personal library of probably, well, hundreds of books, maybe 600-700 books. And I would use the library all the time. And whether it was at Michigan or Stanford, or, I would hold up in the library and I'd have a pile of books that I'd be paging through. I can't remember the last time that I went to a library. And I have just a handful of books now, physical books, but I have about 700, close to 800 books on this computer that I'm using to interact with all of you. So while we're talking, I could look something up. In fact, I just did. Because to respond to your other question about what we might recommend as a reading, this is a bit off the wall, but it really spoke to me. I did a lot of research for this book that I did and learned a lot, which is why it took 3 years to write it. And one of the people that I discovered and ended up being a central person throughout the book was Eleanor Ostrom, who was a professor at Indiana University and won a Nobel Prize in economics. Now, her field actually wasn't economics, it was political science. But then again, that Herb Simon won a Nobel Prize in economics, and his field was actually, well, that's hard to say, cognitive psychology, artificial intelligence. He was a polymath. But, and also political science. Actually, he won his Nobel Prize for administrative organization or something like that. At any rate, I would recommend a book called Governing the Commons. Governing the Commons. In it, she actually develops design principles. So here's a Nobel laureate who actually got her award for her design principles. And I thought that was really important. And what's particularly important about this is that these principles were empirically derived. They didn't just come off the top of her head. She looked at communities all over the world who were governing the commons. They were creating ways of generating and organizing common resources that they used as a group. And she documented how they did this and turned those into a set of design principles. So it's not, this book is not kind of in the field that we're talking about, except that there are these design principles for creating resources that contribute to the common good, which of course connected with my book on making the world a better place.
Bo, I'm hoping that you're cataloging all the resources that Tom Reeves and Bob and Ron have been sharing with us and others so that we can share with the whole class. I think Jill unmuted her camera for a reason. She usually asks a question. She's she's the third of 4 visiting scholars I have. She's from Taiwan. Before she jumps in here with the last question for tonight, I'll just say that when I met Yayoi out in Japan on December 1st, I've been running every day, and it was cold, rainy, windy, late at night. It was 10 o'clock, and I got my run in Japan. After that, we went to dinner, and we got served by robots. Okay? So my first experience, my first meal in Japan was my servers were robots. So, if you haven't experienced that, it was unique, and you got to put your hand in his heart after you get served that you don't need him anymore, and then he'll go away. That was kind of cool too. It's coming. All this stuff is coming. Jill, I know you're studying immersive learning for your dissertation. She's defended. The paperwork hasn't been signed, but she's defended successfully. And now looking for a job. Jill Wang, would you like to ask a question?
Actually, okay, can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So actually, I'm not hiding myself. I'm just listening. Yeah, and I totally agree with some keywords, some very important concepts that were mentioned in this period. For example, the design-based approach, and we have to use every kind of technology, no matter it's AI, artificial intelligence, or virtual reality, for some values that we think that is important in our classrooms or in our life. Yes, but yeah, I do believe the concept of artificial intelligence or virtual reality would not replace anything in our life, because this is just like the concept of computer in our third industrial revolution, and I think AI or virtual reality would be the fourth one in humans history. And if we can use this kind of tools, I mean, in a method, in a project collected wisdom, I think this kind of tools can help us to do all kinds of tasks better. Yeah, instead of just replace some of us. Yeah, that is my belief. And I think I have the belief that everyone over here will agree with me. Is it? Yeah.
And I hope Ron, Bob, and Tom, you all agree with me. She's ready to become a professor somewhere.
I would think so.
Yeah, but there are people out there whose whole purpose in life is to disrupt, and that's how they make a living.
For sure.
And Tom, go ahead, Phil.
No, because at the beginning of the searching period, I think, because originally I would like to conduct a research to see if AI or this generative AI would lower people's or students' cognition levels. And probably this is some kind of concern teacher may use AI in the classroom, only in educational setting. So that's what I mean. I totally agree the concept of design-based approach, because this is the core of either in the educational setting or in our daily life. That's because you have to see why you have to use this kind of tools to teach your students, or why you have to use this kind of tool in our life instead of replace our or decrease or lower our cognition levels. So I totally agree with the key concept that repeatedly mentioned in today's lectures. So thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Esther has a comment, I think. Esther, you want to unmute and just help us out there?
I was just wondering, maybe someone can talk about it. And I think Jill has just mentioned a little bit of it. I wonder if AIs are going to replace the thought process of researchers. The deep thought process of humans. I am saying this because I see that a lot with my students, but I also see it with myself. When I want to think about something, the first thing I'll say, oh, let me see what ChatGPT says, or what does Bard say about it? Someone has just commented on elicit.com. I use a lot of that, and Perplexity. And I don't know if it's a pro, I would look at it as a con, because I don't get to think deeply, because it looks like it gets ideas for me and I'm just building onto those ideas. So somehow it makes me think, will I lose my thinking, like my deep thought of knowledge and coming up with my own ideas? Thank you.
That's the final student question for tonight. Bob, Ron, you have any, or Tom, you have any comment there? Are we losing our intelligence?
Yeah, well, I could comment on that, and I think the short answer is yes, but it's changing. The classic example in math, of course, was the introduction of calculators and calculating the square root by hand. probably no one in this group would know how to do that anymore. Maybe Bob does, I don't know, or Tom.
No.
Not like, you probably don't remember that. But it's the same kind of skill. The skills we need are going to be changing. We're going to be using AI, as I said before, to augment. It's going to supplement our thinking. It's going to boost our thinking. It's going to do brainstorming for us. I was saying it's going to, it does now. So we're not going to really need to develop those skills quite as much as before. But our new skills are going to be judging and assessing. Is what ChatGPT, for instance, putting out accurate? Does it make sense? Is it logical? Are those references, like Bob mentioned, are they valid references? That's going to be our skill more. We're going to be developing those skills, critical thinking skills. Maybe not so much creative skills as it's really.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ron. I think it would have been very easy for me to take that response that I got with from version 3.5 and share that. And you know, I think it takes someone to say, wait, you know, I'm not totally comfortable without going further and checking sources and kind of playing out the arguments and to be critical users of AI. I think, and that requires a set of skills, as you point out.
And we will be using it. All of you will be using it absolutely in your professional lives going forward. You're using it now if you're a student, and going forward, you're going to be using it more and more. And I think our skills, the skills that we need, will change as a result.
But I'm not getting the chip in my brain. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, well, I just want to say, you asked for a recommendation, and I posted one, Genius Makers by Cade Metz. Not a well-known book, but Cade is a writer for the New York Times. And he produced a very, very readable book about the origins of generative AI. And my previous heroes, many decades ago, Seymour Papert and Marvin Minsky, they actually held back the whole generative AI movement, feeling that machines could never learn on their own. They had to be programmed and given rules for every single step that they would carry out. They didn't think that machines could come up with new ideas, create something new, new thoughts, new ideas, new text from previous text. So it's a very, very fascinating read up until the very early days of OpenAI and ChatGPT getting going. So
I'll put that in the list for tonight's students. Put it in there.
Highly recommend it. I'm not sure about I have a hardcover copy, one of the few, Bob, and hardcover, but it may be available at ebook as well. Amazon, definitely. It's there.
Can you hold it up again? Hold it up for us.
Just get it in focus here. Genius Makers. Genius Makers, the Mavericks who brought AI, Google, and Facebook to the world. And it's fascinating. A lot of it focuses around Geoffrey Hinton, the University of Toronto, considered the godfather of modern deep learning. And
who does believe in the AI apocalypse?
Yeah, that's right. Because what's fascinating about it is the author brings in the personal side. Geoffrey Hinton, for instance, had a disability from his early days where he couldn't sit. He had to either stand or lie down because of a physical problem. And the early days, Google wanted him to go over to the deep learning group in London, and he said he couldn't go because he can't sit in an airplane. So they chartered a jet with a bed in it so he could fly him over there. Described him sitting with his graduate students in Las Vegas, waiting for bids from Google, Facebook, and Microsoft to get his team to move. And he finally cut it off at 45 million or something. Okay, we'll go to Google for 45 million. So he brings in that side as well as how the AI winters and what happened, why they happened, and it's very fascinating. I highly recommend it.
Funny, the people in Turkmenistan who invited me and didn't get me a personal plane when I told them I have a back issue last week. They said, no private plane for you. Maybe Dr. Ostin weekend. So the three of you as a final, Tom, did you have a comment on what the brain impact on cognition or?
Nothing that I could add beyond what these great gentlemen have said. So, by the way, the book Genius Makers is on sale today for $4.99.
Wow!
Oh my gosh!
Hey, there we go.
Go
How about
for it.
Audible? How about Audible, Tom? Does it have?
It has an Audible version too.
Okay, all for $4.
Definitely go for it. If you could have it in your car playing, yeah, absolutely. And when you're flying somewhere, absolutely, it's very readable.
So I hate to do this to you guys. I would like you to make a final comment, maybe about the future, where we're going. And while each of you maybe make a 1-minute final comment, each of you, if the students in here, others could type in the chat your appreciation for our guests tonight. Just maybe 3 words, 4 words, 5 words, but let's hear from all 3 of them, and then we'll get a picture of everybody before we go. So who would like to start with a comment or on the future or comment on tonight? Bob, Tom, maybe we should end with Bob since he was the invited guest for tonight. We should start with Ron or Tom here.
Yeah, I'll just say that I always love it when Kurt texts me and says, "Ooh, I've got a great guest in for my class tonight. Do you want to sit in?" And so when I saw it was Bob, there was no way I was going to miss it. So I'm so glad I did. I always learn so much and really appreciate
thank you.
And just thrilled by all the young people you got here as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I feel very much the same, and Bob and Tom and Bob. Certainly, Bob, I haven't connected with you for quite a while, and it's been terrific to meet up. And Kurt, you're the person, the glue that gets everybody together. Without you, it wouldn't have happened.
Elmer's glue.
Yeah, this was a real surprise and a real delight. I was expecting to carry the load here, but to have these guys and you, Kurt, this was really a lot of fun. I enjoyed this very much, and it was great connecting to Ron and Tom, and of course you again, Kurt, and it was very delightful. Thank you.
Well, they're going to let me do this next year, both face-to-face and online, 2 sections. So maybe we can have part 2 on this next spring, if I remember all. But yeah, so very impressive. Lena says very creative discussions and so forth. Everyone's Bo's coming in. Thanking you, Elise, as well. Esther, everyone has enjoyed tonight's session. As you can see, I did. It's recorded. I'll make this available for you all in a day or so. But thank you, Bob. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Tom. I wish you could be there in person to shake your hands or to buy you a beer or to just chat on your porch. We should meet up in Reno sometime or in San Francisco, or in Rome, Georgia, or on Ron's boat on the Great Lakes, so thank you. So I get a picture of everyone. Hold your hands up and do the world is open sign. I'll snap the shot here. 1, 2, 3, smile. Great, thank you very much. Okay, wow. I'm going to stop the recording at this point. This is week 5. I didn't stop. Let's keep going. Stop the recording. Week 5, R678 with Bob Kozma, with Tom Reeves, with Ron Ostin, with Bo, with my students, Yo Yanzi, with others from around the world, Jill and Lena and Sung Hee. Thank you very much for tonight.